Hey everybody, welcome into the Rocky Top Rewind here at VolQuest.com and on the VolQuest YouTube channel. I'm Eric Kane alongside Brent Hubbs. We do it every single Sunday night at 8 o'clock right here at VolQuest. And if you're watching this on the VolQuest YouTube channel, help us out by liking this video. The goal is always to get to 500 likes. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to the show on YouTube. Brent, we got a good deal coming off right now, right before Christmas, $10 for 1 year of a VolQuest.com subscription. It is a perfect Christmas gift to get that Tennessee fan in your life, your family, your cast of friends. $10 for 1 year at VolQuest.com. Also, Brent, Jalin Hyatt becomes the first Biletnikoff Award winner in Tennessee history. It was kind of a no doubts, award in my opinion, based on the stat sheets. Marvin Harrison Jr. had a fantastic season, but what an award for Jalin Hyatt, what an award for Tennessee.
Yeah, no doubt. And you never know about those awards because you don't know exactly what people are looking at. But statistically, Jalin Hyatt was clearly the better receiver from a stat standpoint. But you never know how everybody views that. And he's very deserving of the award. And if you've watched this show, if you've read anything I've written for the last 10 months on this football team, you know how big of a fan I am of Jalin Hyatt. And I'm a big fan of his for a lot of reasons. He's got a ton of talent, but I'm a big fan of kind of the way he went to work to become the player he's become. And just a terrific honor for him, a big honor for Josh Heupel and for Tennessee to certainly sell in recruiting, and certainly something big for the Tennessee fans, something that's, Tennessee's never had one before. I know that award's only been around since 94, but Tennessee's had a lot of good receivers play football since 1994. And just a great year by Jalin Hyatt. Did it on the biggest stages, when Cedric Tillman went down, his game elevated, and he took his game to another level, which says a lot about kind of who he is and the competitive character that he has.
Both of those guys, Marvin Harrison Jr. as well, both number one receivers for Ohio State and Tennessee, missed a whole lot of time this year. And Marvin Harrison Jr. and Jalin Hyatt both stepped up and kind of benefited in that regard. But, also I think there's a number of factors here. Jalin Hyatt spoke repeatedly. We've written about it. Last year, walked down through the hallway with his head down, the hood up, and his heart wasn't in it and everything. He got benched, put in the work over the offseason, bettered himself, invested himself into this program, into the weight room, into the film room, and was never satisfied. And then you couple that mindset, that renewed mindset, with the scheme of what Josh Heupel and Alex Golesh and the coaching from Kelsey Pope. I mean, it was kind of the perfect storm. And yeah, sure, there was a lot of mismatches out there. There was a lot of ways that Tennessee was able to scheme up Jalin Hyatt to get open down the field, and that's a credit to coaching. But also, I mean, speed, as you would say, has never had a bad day. Jalin Hyatt was able to get behind the secondary a lot of times and run some crisp routes, and you kind of put all that together, and you put forth a season of over 1,200 yards receiving and a nation-leading 15 touchdowns.
Yeah, and again, I think the credit starts with Jalin Hyatt because he didn't pack up and go to the house. What do we let? Where are we at now? 800 kids in the portal or something like that. A lot of guys are looking for greener pastures when it doesn't go their way, and he realized that he could create his own green pastures at Tennessee through the advice of Velus Jones. I will mind you as well. But Tennessee, really invested in Jalin, and Jalin invested back in Tennessee, and it became just a terrific marriage for everybody involved this year. And I think sometimes you have to go through adversity to figure out how good you are and to figure out how good you can be. And I think that's what Jalin Hyatt went through a year ago. And I think he came out the other side of it, obviously not just a better player, but he'll tell you a better person from it as well. So hats off to Jalin for the perseverance and the willingness to put your foot down where you are and go to work. And that's exactly what he did.
Hey, Brent, what does this mean? What could this mean for, the program itself? I mean, obviously, I think this is, something you could use in recruiting. I think this is something Josh Heupel and Kelsey Pope can be using, throughout the next, couple of months. I mean, I think this is a testament not only to Jalin Hyatt, but to Josh Heupel as he continues to rebuild this program. 10 wins in year 2 and a major award. Sure, you didn't get a Heisman finalist from Hendon Hooker, but you did win a Biletnikoff award, and I think that means something.
Well, I mean, I think you can mention that to the recruits, and recruits might go, okay, yeah, that's cool. But then they want to see what does your vol in the NFL spotlight look like, right? I mean, who are you putting in the league? What are you doing there? Jalen's going to end up in the league at some point, we all know. But Josh Heupel's got a couple other guys in the National Football League that are doing well. It's not just a product of the system. It's the fact that there's good players playing in the system. And I think this is a validation to how good of a player Jalin Hyatt is in this system, which is a credit to him and a credit to Coach Heupel. And it doesn't hurt. I mean, in recruiting, Tennessee's certainly going to sell it. And they'll sell it coupled with, hey, here's some guys that played for us, and here's what's going on with them, at the next level. Because as you and I both know in talking to recruits, that's a very clear question that gets asked to coaches right now. How are you going to develop me for the next level, in addition to what's the NIL package going to be like, and all those types of things as well. But, I think it's certainly a selling point in recruiting. It doesn't hurt.
Jalin Hyatt's just one of a couple different volunteers that's got a decision to make, a decision on whether to go ahead and turn pro or come back. The two others I'm referencing here, Cedric Tillman and Darnell Wright. Both of those guys are either a senior or a fifth-year senior. They have eligibility left, but they put in 4 years. Jalin Hyatt on the other end is just a junior now. But also in regards to going pro or coming back, are you going to play in the Orange Bowl? Jalin Hyatt was asked about this Thursday night after winning the Biletnikoff Award, saying potentially there will be a decision coming up this week. Here is Jalin Hyatt.
I had to talk to my family and the coaching staff. We're still 50-50 on some things. And, I'll have a decision next week for everybody. And but as far as, those are two things I have to weigh in, the receiving record and just playing with the team and or leaving. And, I'm taking into consideration hard, with my family and coaches, but we'll have a decision next week. You have to weigh in both options. Do you think, as far as scouting wise, do you feel like you're ready for the league? Do you think you need to come back? What is NIL? What is NIL pushing? And as far as leaving, what round? What is your evaluation? What does the scouts think about you? It's a lot of things that I have to take into consideration, and would do patiently doing it, with my family and coaches. And I just want to credit Coach Hype of just helping me through the process and helping me make the right decision, for me and my future.
Brent, that was Jalin Hyatt on Thursday night, kind of going through the factors he'll be working through in order to make a decision. It says that he'll have a decision this week at some point. It's going to be a big one for Tennessee. It's going to be tough, though, if you look at kind of where your stock is, where your projections are. I've seen some mocks having him as high as late first round, day 2 guy. That might be tough to turn away. And if so, what can you gain from playing in a bowl game where you would potentially have everything to lose?
No doubt, and there's a lot of factors, that go in there. There's obviously the injury consideration is something that all guys look at, and Jalin Hyatt has witnessed that up close and personal with the injury to Hendon Hooker. We all saw what happened to Matt Corral a year ago in a bowl game. So we'll see what happens there. In terms of next year, I think the question you have to ask, and the question every kid should ask themselves, is how much can I better myself if I come back? How many rounds could I jump in the draft? How many picks could I move up in the draft? Some of those types of things are under consideration. And for Jalin Hyatt, it's going to be a different quarterback throwing him the ball next year. He's on the cusp of the first round right now. You got to look at what does the receiver board look like in this draft, and what's it going to potentially look like in the next draft. So lots of things go into that. It's not just a flippant decision, and Jalin Hyatt will certainly use all the resources available to him to evaluate all those things and make what is the best decision for him and his family.
Then again, you got to account for guys like Jalin Hyatt that was on nobody's draft board and then all of a sudden is up there towards the top. There'll be some players like that as well coming out next year. So Jalin Hyatt, we expect to hear from him on terms of a decision at some point this week. Meanwhile, Tennessee has grabbed 2 commits out of the transfer portal. Brent, a tight end, and McCallan Castle, 6'6", 245 pounds from UC Davis. He originally signed with Cal out of high school. And Tennessee went out and got a commitment from a kicker as well, and Charles Campbell from Indiana. 2 positions of need. Tennessee certainly not done in the transfer portal, but that's been the movement so far coming in with 5 players going out.
Yeah, and let's start with the kicker. Why take a kicker, right? What you got JT Carver on your roster. Why are you going to take another roster spot for a kicker? I think the biggest question, the biggest concern you have at kicker is what's the competition with JT Carver? JT Carver's got a solid leg. But I mean, he's not got the biggest leg in all of America. He's got little to no experience at this point. Tennessee does not have anybody else on the roster that's a place kicker of any note. And so, you go Paxton Brooks could have place kicked. He could have made some field goals. Toby Wilson could have kicked a year ago, this past year if McGrath had gotten hurt. Right now, Tennessee's slated not to have anybody. So they needed some competition with JT Carver and some depth at that position. They went out and got a guy who's kicked in game-winning type situations in the Big Ten. To provide that competition and maybe be the starting kicker at Tennessee. So I think that's a big part of that. An in-state kid coming back home, I'm sure it's a big thrill to him to get to come back to Tennessee. But that's a big reason why Tennessee was looking for a kicker. That's not the most common position everybody's been asking about this. And to me, it's the biggest need on the roster in terms of transfer portal help. Tennessee's got to have help. We don't know what Jacob Warren's going to do. I'm not sure he's going to come back. I know that's not a final decision by him, but I don't know exactly what he's going to do. If it's 50-50 in my estimation at best for him right now. Princeton Fan is gone. Miles Campbell is gone. You're left with a couple of walk-ons basically. You're bringing in Ethan Davis, who's coming off a shoulder, surgery procedure that cost him his senior year in high school. He's going to have to get more physical. How quick can he get ready to play? And so here's Castles out there available for you. This is a guy who's on some NFL boards as a second day or third day selection potentially, Eric. And I think that most people feel like Tennessee went out and got themselves a good player at that position, and that's a position of need. I'm not sure Tennessee's done there. I know Tony's asking tonight about the tight end from Shorter College. And I don't know. I don't know if they're going to go there or not. We'll see. I think Tennessee's continuing to look at him and visit with him. And I think there's a real likelihood that Tennessee would like to take a second tight end. Maybe they're just waiting to see if there's anybody else going to jump in the portal, but before they move any faster with anybody else. So we'll see what happens there. I think Castles is a solid get when you look at the production he's had, the size he brings to the table, and the experience he has, Eric.
Yeah, I think so too. And of course, we know how important the tight end position is for this offense. We know the importance of having more than just one. I know Alex Golesh and Josh Heupel spoke when they got hired almost 2 years ago, the importance of having 3 or 4 guys ready, and then hopefully having 5 guys that can at least contribute on special teams. So Tennessee has not had that. Been fortunate to have 2 guys that you can rely on. And then you've seen, at least in Princeton Fant's regard, his role continue to grow with the second year in the system. Tennessee's had 2 guys they can count on, but not a whole lot of depth behind those guys. So very, very important. I'm sure you've been getting this question just as much as I have. I mean, Tennessee's gone out. They got a kicker, a tight end, potentially not done at the tight end position. But where else will Tennessee kind of look to maybe make some moves in the transfer portal? Tennessee has offered a wide receiver out of Kent State, Devontae Walker. And you can follow all that with our transfer portal story up at VolQuest.com. We update it daily. What are some other positions and some needs that Tennessee will not only look to address, but likely bring in some over the next, this entire offseason?
Well, I mean, I think receiver certainly is where they're pretty invested in when you look at the guys that they have offered out there. The kid from Oregon, you mentioned the kid from Kent State as well. You got the kid at Mississippi State. So I think they definitely want to bring in a receiver in this group. And then, if the right guys fall in some places, we'll see. I mean, an offensive tackle, I don't think, Eric, you take an offensive lineman just to take an offensive lineman. He's got to be a tackle. Don't take a guy who's just a body who's going to play inside at guard. If you're going to take a transfer guy, you need a guy who can be an impact tackle, playing right or left. So you got to have a true tackle there, I think, in the transfer portal, not just another warm body, if you will. We'll see on defensive line. They've been involved. They were involved with a Louisville kid who's now going to Florida. Just trying to talk to the Louisville kid that never got into anything like a visit or anything like that. The 2 kids from Western Michigan, we'll see if anything comes from that or if anybody else jumps in the portal. There's not a lot of edge guys out there that really jump out at you. I don't think there's a ton of DBs out there that jump out at you. I think there's a bunch in the portal, but I don't think anybody's really lining up for a bunch of those DBs. And then maybe a linebacker. I think that's certainly a possibility. I think part of that also depends on what does it look like on this roster for Tennessee post bowl game. Does anybody else go in the portal? Does anybody else go in the portal before the bowl game? I wouldn't think so at this point. But there's going to be another window and another round of movement post bowl game. and we'll see what that looks like at Tennessee, and we'll see what that looks like around the country in terms of guys being available.
It is moving fastly all across the country, the transfer portal, and you can track all of Tennessee's involvement over at VolQuest.com with our transfer portal tracker. I encourage you guys to check that out over there. We got a special treat. We're going to take a break here, but when we come back, to grab a quick 60, we have got the father of Jalin Hyatt. His name is Jamie Hyatt. He's going to come on and, of course, brag on his son a little bit, and really looking forward to this conversation as Jalin Hyatt wins the Biletnikoff Award, the first Tennessee Vol to ever do it. Back in 60, this is the Rocky Top Rewind. Welcome back into the Rocky Top Rewind every Sunday night right here at VolQuest.com and on the VolQuest YouTube channel. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel on YouTube, and $10 for 1 year subscription over at VolQuest.com. That is the perfect Christmas gift for you or that Tennessee fan in your life. Brent, really excited to welcome on our next guest. He is the father of Jalin Hyatt, the Biletnikoff Award winner. His name is Jamie Hyatt, and we bring him on here to the Rocky Top Rewind. Jamie, thanks so much for taking the time. First and foremost, congratulations on being the father of a Biletnikoff Award winner.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate you guys having me on. I appreciate what you guys do. You're very professional in what you do, very gracious in what you do. And I've just, throughout over these years, I just really appreciate what y'all do.
Well, appreciate that, man. And tell me about the moments. I know you guys were on hand. You got to experience that with Jalin. Kind of walk us through that as a father. Kind of what were you thinking right there?
Yeah, it was surreal. I think the biggest feeling that we had probably was just an immense feeling of pride, and pride for Jalin and what he's accomplished and his journey to get there. But pride for just the whole team, the coaching staff, to being with those guys right in the team room, to see their camaraderie and really, so that's some of the things that that's what fans don't see, is like those intimate moments, and to see all of his teammates and how they were coming up to him and just so genuinely happy for him. And it just, it makes your heart smile to see that, to see how everybody's just happy. They're all pulling for each other genuinely, and you can feel it. And that was really cool to be a part of that. And, but yeah, it was, some moments of just some surrealness of just like, this is it. Because, the cameras were there and you had to be seated in certain places, and cameras were always on you. And it was just, it was really cool just to be with Jalin and his teammates during that time.
Well, Jamie, again,
a word,
you
a couple of words.
Oh, go ahead, Brent. Sorry.
I'm sorry, I may have flipped out there. I'm not sure what happened. How would you describe in a word or a phrase the last 3 years? If you were summing it up for somebody on the outside who had never seen it, didn't follow it, how would you describe it, Jamie, as a dad?
Perseverance. Perseverance, right? And that's how I would describe it, because it's been such a journey, right? And he came in, he's always, with high school, not to say that it was easy because he worked very hard, but, a lot of these guys were they're on the top level, let's be honest, right? Your top guys, high school is easy. And that's not to take away from what they've done and the amount of work that they put in and their coaches and everybody's put in, but it's easy for them. And then you step into a conference like the SEC, right? And you have to know that it's not going to be easy anymore. And Jalen stepped in his freshman year and really had a good freshman campaign, because that's not what I've always told him. It's like, look, your goal as a freshman, especially in the SEC, is just get on the field, right? Just get on the field, get those reps. And then, of course, we had the staff change. That was very tough. And then you start your sophomore year, and things, you get injured, and in the Pitt game, season doesn't go the way that you might have envisioned it going. And then you got to step back and you got to go, well, why isn't it going the way that I thought it was going to go, right? And then you got to look in the mirror. You got to have some tough conversations with yourself. He had some tough conversations with us, some things that maybe he didn't want to hear. And from there, you got to make a choice, right? Because, I kind of always told him, like, what are you going to do, right? The season's not going the way you want it to go. So what do you don't have many choices here. You can either fish or cut bait, right? One of those. And so he decided, look, let's double down. And he decided to really start doing the things that he needed to do. And you could see it throughout last year. He was making those progressions. And then in January, it really, that's when he really got so focused, more focused than I've ever seen him in my life. And I know the amount of work that he put in, and I know his dedication. And so to see all this with the Biletnikoff come to fruition, it's emotional to even think about, with considering what he went through and then how much preparation he put into that.
Jamie, how was that balancing act? I mean, you want to be there, you want to help him, you want to mold him, you want to tell him what he's doing wrong, tell him what he could do, but you want to be a father, you want to be there for him. I mean, your kid's hurting. How was that balancing act for you there last year?
Yeah, so we texted a lot, right? We texted a lot because myself being an English teacher, I felt like sometimes I could put better thoughts, into text, right? I could say what I really wanted to say in words that he could read. And we would go back and forth with each other and again, have some tough conversations with each other. And it hurt, right? Because any parent doesn't want their child to struggle. But at the same time, I guess the dad in me, right, knows that, to me, any boy, right, should, or their son should have to go through that conflict or that journey, and they need to figure some things out on their own, right? Because I can help, or his mom and I can help provide, some guidance, but ultimately it's up to him. And we can't be there, right? But we can offer support, we can offer love, we can offer advice, and he did very, very well with listening. Maybe not in the moment, he didn't want to hear it, but eventually, as days pass, he would. I know he read those things and saw those things, and maybe as the days pass, he would kind of take those and digest them, and get what we were trying to say. So yeah, you're right. It was a balancing act. I mean, no parent wants to see their child, have a hard time or struggle with things, but it's a part of that journey, that these guys go through.
Jamie, was there a moment, was there a month, a week? Do you remember a text reply where you went, well, that sounds different? I'm reading that different. Like, he's interpreting what we've been talking about for several weeks, and the replies I'm getting now are different than the replies I was getting pre-Christmas or in the middle of last season.
Right. And throughout all of that, when things weren't going his way, now let me say this, and I've said this to anybody, he was the biggest fan of his teammates, especially Velus, right? Jalen never sat back and was mad because, never. And he was the biggest supporter of Velus because, Velus was taking him under his wing. And he knew, Dad, my time's coming. And I'm just, that's one of the things I told him. I said, son, look, be a good teammate, right? Be a good person, make plays when you get a chance. And he really, I mean, and he did that throughout last year, but it was definitely, if I had to say, it was definitely in January, early February, but definitely in January when we would text, we would talk that, yeah, I heard something different because I heard goals and I heard a plan to reach those goals. And then in February, and again, I've mentioned this before, but I'm not going to mention it too much until Jalen is ready to share, if and when he's ever ready to share. Is in February, I think 16th. A handwritten letter, and on that was his thoughts, and makes me emotional even thinking about it. His thoughts and his goals, and he wrote down some things, and he called it The Secret, and he wrote down 10 things. And I've mentioned already one of those, and that's he wrote down that he's going to go for 1,000 yards, and he wrote down 9 other things, and he said that I will live by these 10 things, and he did, and it was when I read it. I had to excuse myself. I was actually at work. I had to excuse myself going to the bathroom. I just started bawling, crying, just reading it. And let me tell you, he wrote down those 10 things and he stuck to them, every single one of them.
Jamie, so we had a chance to catch up with Jalen right after he won the award the other night, and one of the questions we asked him was, do you have a favorite moment of the season, or a favorite touchdown or catch or whatever? And the one that he said that really sticks out to him was the 5th touchdown, of course, against Alabama. So let me ask you this. Do you have a favorite moment, or one that kind of stands out amongst the rest? Maybe it's a touchdown, maybe it's just a normal catch, a moment from this year from your son.
I would say the 5th touchdown also. We were there almost in disbelief watching that. And I remember after his 3rd touchdown, I looked over. Devin, his younger brother, was with us. And Devin said, Dad, this was after his 3rd touchdown. Devin said, Dad, Jalen's going to score 5 times. And I just said, what? No way. And he said, Dad, watch. He's going to score 5 times. And sure enough, he scored 5. And then that 5th one, and yeah, I couldn't believe it. I mean, I don't know. As a dad, as a parent, all of them are special. So the LSU one, the long 9, the go ball against LSU was pretty special too, because that was coming right at us. And that was pretty special too. I don't know. I say all of them are special, but those 2 in particular for sure.
Jamie, you've mentioned a couple of times the program and the teammates and what people don't see behind the scenes. Coaching changes are hard because that's not the people you know. What has Josh Heupel, Alex Golesh, Cody Burns, now Kelsey Pope, as a parent, what have those guys meant to you for what they've done for Jalen?
Oh, it means the world of what they did. They came in. And you're right. Staff changes are not easy at all, and I think that's one of the things that fans don't quite get, right? Especially when you've been recruited by another staff. It's you've developed relationships with those guys. Regardless of win-loss record, right? You have developed relationships with those guys, and it hurts. And so, Heupel and his staff came in and they came in with these standards that this is the type of program that we're going to be, and it's exactly what we needed, right? It's exactly what we needed at the time, and I'm just so thankful for all the guys, and even how they tried to reach Jalen, maybe when he didn't want to listen, right? And my biggest thing is they kept loving him, right? They just kept loving him, and Jalen, he gave into that love too, right? He accepted that love too, and Coach Pope, let me tell you, that's why I was pushing. When I once Cody left and they were looking for another wide receiver coach, that was I knew right then that Coach Pope, Kelsey Pope, had to be the guy. I mean, he had to be. He had taken Jalen under his wings, throughout all of last year that nobody knew about. He had really taken him under his wings, and I knew once the position was open that to me that there was only one person for the job, and it was Kelsey Pope for sure. And we talk sometimes, and I'm after the Bama game, we saw each other in the locker room, and he was emotional, and I was emotional, and really just thanking each other for trusting each other. But all of those guys, and they put their arms around these guys, and they loved them. They held them to a high standard, which should always be the case. And they went out there and they have fun. And you can sense it again when you're amongst the guys and the players the way we know them. You sense that, right? You sense that even in the way that the players come up to you and give you a hug. I mean, you see the look on their face, and they're happy. They're genuinely happy, right? And so that's special to see.
Hey, Jamie, I got one more for you. In this era of college football, it's continuing to evolve, and a lot of people have a lot of opinions about NIL, name, image, and likeness, and all that. But for me, what I'm seeing your son do with this recent, partnership with Hyatt Hotels, I mean, this is the type of stuff that you kind of envision from the get-go, and able to, gift a generous, gift for all of his teammates, and traveling to games and whatnot, the Orange Bowl and all that. How proud are you that your son is having success, and then using that success to, be a better man and to help people? Because that's one of the greatest things about name, image, and likeness that people often overlook. But what happened last week with his deal with Hyatt Hotels, I think that's awesome.
Right, and I think it's because he knows that he didn't do it alone, right? And he didn't do it alone, and so when we deal with some of these brands. That's one thing that he asked about and that we talk about with certain brands is, look, is there, within this contract right here, is there a gifting opportunity? And some brands, want to work that in, and some brands can't. But that's one of the things that he likes to check on is there a gifting opportunity for something that I can somehow reward my teammates? And I'm telling you, working with Hyatt or the world of Hyatt, that was great because we could bounce back, between them and say, look, one of our biggest difficulties and a lot of the parents is getting to see our sons play. And it's tough, right? We're always on, for us being down in Florida, we're always on jumping on planes, which is not cheap. And then we have to figure out where to stay. And in Knoxville, the rates are incredibly high during the season. And so we knew that, and Jalen knew that, that we struggled to get to his games. It put a huge financial strain on us. And, when we talked to the world of Hyatt, that's one of the things we talked about is, look, you guys are one of the, the biggest brands in the world. And, wouldn't it be cool if we could somehow work out something to where his teammates, could to get to a bowl game, or it could be used anywhere else. But, we kind of work this to be used at a bowl game, to get to see their sons play. So it's been a great partnership so far, and we really look forward to working with those guys in the future also.
Jamie, I don't want you to give anything away, but Jalen talked about the, kind of the conversations you guys were going to have and everything, and he was hoping to have a decision sometime this week about his future with his last year of eligibility as well as the bowl game. I don't want to glimpse into all of those details of those conversations, but how difficult is that for him, and how do you guys? What's the team? How much bounce back and conversation takes place there without diving into your personal matters before any decisions made?
Yeah, and he has made a decision that announcement will come out sometimes this week, and but he has made a decision. I know in the several days ago this past week he said he was 50-50, but he has made a decision. That announcement will come out, and look, we talked to just a whole circle of people that we needed to talk to that he trusts. Um, we talked to, we leaned on people who don't want anything from him, right? And so to me, for these guys going through this process, that's the important part, is listening to the people that don't want anything from you except the best for you. Um, and so we had to separate ourselves, right, from certain people and groups, maybe, because this is a pretty important decision. And we talked about this as a family. Talked to Coach Heupel, talked to Kelsey Pope. Some great conversations with them, and so that's just the way we've tried to go about this. Is just listen to the people that don't have a vested interest in you, other than to see you successful, whatever that means, right? So so that's kind of how that's gone so far. But he will have an announcement this week. But we need to some kind of have some final kind of just kind of discussions on how that message gets out.
Well, Jamie, we really appreciate you coming on and joining us here tonight. Thank you for the extended time. We just kept asking you questions because it was really good. But thank you again. Congratulations again. And I think all Tennessee fans, really fans of college football, really enjoyed watching Jalin Hyatt's season this year and can't wait to see what's next for him, whether that's back in college or going off to the NFL.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for everything you do.
Thanks, Jamie.
Awesome.
Appreciate you, man.
Thank you, Jamie. That is Jamie Hyatt, the father of Tennessee wide receiver Jalin Hyatt, Biletnikoff Award winner, first one in Tennessee history. Really, really awesome stuff there on the Rocky Top Rewind. We're going to take a quick 60. When we return, let's discuss Tennessee's win over number 13 Maryland today on the hardwood up at the Barclays Center. Rob Lewis will join us to break down that coming up next on the Rocky Top Rewind. Welcome back into the Rocky Top Rewind. We got about 20 minutes left. We got plenty to discuss here at VolQuest.com and on the VolQuest YouTube channel. If you're watching us, please like and subscribe. Don't forget $10 for 1 year of a VolQuest.com subscription. It's the perfect Christmas gift. I'm Eric Kane. That's Brent Hubbs. And we're going to bring on our colleague, Rob Lewis. Rob Lewis is covering a little bit of everything for Tennessee. It's crossover season, but now more towards basketball. And Rob, it was one where it was a tale of two halves earlier today, defensively at least for Tennessee. Played really good defense in the first half, did not play good defense in the second half, but Tennessee does pick up a nice win to look back on later on as the season goes on, 56-53 over Maryland.
Yeah, this is going to be one that you're glad, it's not gymnastics where you get graded on style points. All that matters at the end of the day is the final score. And, it was a wild one. Tennessee's offense was never good today, but really, disappeared in the final 10 minutes. Toby Awaka gets that put-back bucket, and there's like 11 and a half minutes left. Tennessee's up 45-29, and, you feel like, well, it's not great, but they're going to get home just fine. And then, the last 10 minutes, they just lost the thread. They turned the ball over 5 times in the space of about 6 minutes. Maryland rattled off a 12-0 run, and Maryland shot 50% the second half after shooting 12% in the first half. So, I know fans are maybe not thrilled because Tennessee struggled so bad. It was tough to watch, but at the end of the day, you played without 2 members of your rotation, and Josiah and Jonas Adu, 2 guys who, had been playing a lot of minutes. and you get a win, not a road win, but on a neutral court against a top 15 team, and that's when it's going to look good in March.
Rob, it's interesting to me, and watching Tennessee against really good opponents. The one thing that jumps out to me is how physical the game is being played right now. Do you think that's going to continue? I mean, that was a knockdown drag out, much like the Kansas game was in the Bahamas. I mean, their officials seem to be letting it go. Do you feel that way? And if so, how much does that aid the defense, and how much is that hurting Tennessee's offense?
Well, I mean, I think it helps Tennessee's defense, and it probably overall is probably better for Tennessee because, I mean, frankly, they are a much better defensive team than they are an offensive team. So I'd say if you're Rick Barnes and you get to, and if you were allowed to decide, how the game was going to be officiated, I mean, I think he would lean towards, wanting to let some things go, and it suits Tennessee's style. I mean, Uros Plavsic may have some shortcomings, but being physical in the paint is not one of them. Zakai Ziegler may be the shortest guy on the court, but he's stout. He's a physical player. All those wings are, Jamad Mashak, Josiah when he's healthy. Tennessee has some big bodies all over the place, and you got to mention Tobe Awaka today. What a stepped up performance by him. I mean, I mentioned they played without Jonas, but other than rim protection, I'm not sure that they really lost a lot. I mean, Tobe was physical in the paint, played 17 minutes, but grabbed 8 rebounds in that time. I mean, he came through in a spot where Tennessee really needed him.
Do you feel like the game's physical, or do you think I'm overreading that?
I mean, Hubbard, honestly, I haven't noticed a tremendous difference. But then, Tennessee is the one team that I watch all the time, and I feel like they want to be a physical basketball team, and I don't know that they're markedly different than they have been in the past.
A lot of people talking about
Julian deck.
Go ahead, Eric.
Sorry, Brent. I was gonna ask Brent about Santiago Vescovi coming back in, missing a couple of games. Didn't shoot the ball very well, but how would you assess Santi's performance here today?
Well, I mean, Tennessee needed him out there just for his savvy, his veteran presence, and no, did not have a great game shooting, but nobody did. For that matter. I mean, Zakai's the only guy that finished in double digits. Tennessee just made 3 shots in the final 10 minutes, and it's remarkable that that you could win a game when that happens. But I thought getting Santi back, especially with Josiah out. Tyreek Key is a senior, but he also is in his first year in your program. And Zakai has played a lot of basketball, but he's still an underclassman. So I think having Santi out there, even on a day when he didn't have his shot going, that it was a boost. I mean, he's a tough competitor. I think people feed off that. He's the kind of teammate that I think gives other guys confidence with how he approaches things.
Rob, when you look at the freshman Phillips, 1 of 10, he missed, I think, 3 or 4 layups. I mean, he had like everybody did, he had a tough day offensively, but he still had 10 rebounds. What does that say much about a freshman that it doesn't appear like he completely let his offense or lack of offense affect his play? He led the team with rebounds today. What does that say about him and kind of his maturity as a young player?
I think it's a pretty big statement about him because a lot of guys, even veterans, but I mean, especially freshmen, they've always, for the most part, I mean, there may be some exceptions, but they've always kind of, gotten their self-worth as a player from, how many points they scored and how their offense is doing. I mean, that's what gets you on highlights and YouTube clips and all that. But I thought that was pretty impressive for Julian today when he just couldn't throw it in the ocean. Couldn't buy a bucket and was still a real presence on the glass with not only 10 rebounds, but 5 of them came on the offensive end to give Tennessee extra possessions and turned out to be good. So I think I've been really impressed by Julian's maturity. I mean, I expected him to be a big time player, but just really a really humble kid. I mean, he may end up being a one and done guy, but he is, unlike some other kids that have come through here, I don't think that that's at the forefront of his mind. And I'm not being critical of those other kids. I mean, a lot of, not naming any names, but a lot of guys have been pointing towards the NBA since they were freshmen or sophomores, since they first started getting ranked. And I don't think Julian is consumed by that. But yeah, to answer your question, however, I thought that showed a lot of maturity on his part to not let his frustrations on the offensive end detract from the rest of his game and still find a way to make a big impact.
As for Awanka, Rob, did what he did today, does that put him in a rotation, or is that Rick Barnes goes, okay? Does he think, okay, I can play him some minutes if we have major foul trouble, or if we have an injury, or is that too soon to say hours after the win's over?
Oh, I don't. I think it's a very fair question. After the game, I mean, Rick, in typical Rick fashion, said, "Hey, if I was those other guys, I'd be worried." Because I can promise you, Rick has been high on Tobey since back in the preseason. He loves the physicality that he plays with, and I think he's been really kind of looking for excuses to give him minutes. I mean, he's been in the game in the first half a couple of times, so I would kind of take Rick at face value. If I was Jonas or Urosh, I probably would be a little bit worried because, I mean, Rick loves the kid. He loves the edge, the physicality that he brings to the court, and how hard he works. And I don't think you're making too much of it. I mean, that was a high level basketball game today in terms of competitiveness and physicality. Not it wasn't pretty by any stretch of the imagination, but Tobey didn't back down at all. He was one of the more physical guys on the floor.
Rob, how important is it? It's impressive as well that Tennessee's played well in the Bahamas. Had a couple big wins. Played well today against a team that's been really, really hot. Not been at full strength so far this entire season. I mean, what's that say about this basketball team? Just here at the beginning of December, that they can find ways to win when they're not their best, or they're missing obviously key pieces of their rotation.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a pretty bold comment about them. I mean, I think Tennessee is one of the best teams in the country. I mean, yes, I mean, they can be hard to watch when they're not making shots. But what you mentioned, Eric, I think is kind of a little underappreciated. The fact that, Santi's missed 2 games, Josiah's now missed 4 games. They haven't had, the complete package, of what Rick Barnes envisioned this team looking like on the floor very often. And, I don't, because of that, I mean, and this goes back to the preseason, because, I mean, Josiah missed tons of time in October. So, I don't think they're where they are. I don't think that where they are in December right now is where Rick envisioned them being from a continuity standpoint. I mean, I think that's been a bigger deal than maybe some people appreciate.
Rob, when you look at this team offensively, obviously it was rough today. They've not been a great offensive team all season long. They've had some moments, but the dry spells have continued to be there. What's the upside to this offense? Do you think that, because I saw a tweet today and I thought it was pretty interesting that Tennessee defensively, that they've got the ability to play deep into March. They also have the ability to go out the first weekend because their offense falls asleep. What do you think the ceiling is for this offense right now?
I really think they could be a good offensive team. I mean, I think there are some guys that are not performing to the baseline that they've established in their career. I mean, just as shooters. I mean, Santi made more than 40% of his threes last year. I think it was like right at 41. He's shooting probably after today, may not even be shooting 30%, but coming in, I mean, he was shooting like 31, 33%. Zakai's numbers are way off from where he's been. Tyreek Key has not, shot it at the clip that he did when he was at Indiana State. And I'm not saying that everybody is going to suddenly start making 1 or 2 more per game, but I think just returning to the mean, if some of these guys just get to where they have been as shooters previously in their career, then I think you're going to see offense be a little better. I'd say what hurt Tennessee today, I mean, there's a lot of stuff, but getting Phillips and Olivier having such tough days, struggling. Rick wants to play inside out all the time. Even if they end up taking a bunch of threes, he wants it to start from inside, and Tennessee just got nothing out of the post today. And Julian's not a back to the basket guy, but he's getting a lot of his points, in the paint off of drives. Olivier had been shooting the lights out for the last, since the Colorado game. Olivier's been making 73% from the floor. He was 32 of 43 in the previous 6 games. So, and he just completely fell off the map today. So, those 2 guys aren't going to be this bad every night. And I really think, I mean, Santi's, we've seen Santi play a lot of basketball. He's going to find his stroke. Zakai's going to shoot it better. I don't think they're going to be a team that averages 80 plus points a game in SEC play, but I think that they could be a lot better than they were today, and I would expect it to be.
Rob, is it as simple as shoot or shoot? Because as bad as Tennessee shot the basketball today, you mentioned those 3 made field goals in the last 10 minutes or whatever. Correct me if I'm wrong. I believe they were all 3-pointers. I believe they all stopped bleedings. Like, Tyreek Key that stopped a 6-minute scoring drought. You had Jemiah Mashack that had a 3-pointer that extended it to a 5-point game. Same with Zakai Ziegler later with less than 3 minutes to go. I feel like this team will just continue to shoot, and I would assume that's what Rick Barnes wants them to. It's just some days they make them, sometimes they don't.
Yeah, that's one of his biggest pet peeves, and not just with this team. I mean, in general, is when guys turn down open shots, even if it's early in the shot clock. I mean, in coach's mind, that is one of the things that leads to turnovers or just bad possessions in general. So, and Tyreek Key has been a guy that he singled out, for that, and I think a lot of that is just Tyreek, getting comfortable with new teammates and kind of figuring out how to be assertive. But yet, the right guys have to take the shots, and Key with a big three, Zakai with a big three. I mean, that's what you want to see from those guys. But it can be tough. I mean, if you're Santiago and you've had a tough shooting day, like he did today. I mean, a really tough shooting day. It's maybe hard to step into that open 22-footer with 25 seconds left on the shot clock, but that's what the coach wants him to do.
Rob, how big of a surprise is Mashack to you?
Not a huge one, but only because I saw preseason practice and heard the staff, talking about him. Of the guys coming back, I think he might have had the best summer. Jemiah's a top 50 recruit and played like 3 minutes a game as a freshman. In this day and age, that's a lot of guys are headed to the portal after that, and I don't think that ever crossed his mind. I mean, he was just, what do I need to do to play? What do I need to work on this summer? He had a great off season. I'm a little bit surprised, the 3-point shot, not the one that he just hit it today, but he's turned himself into a capable 3-point shooter. But athletically, it looked in the preseason like he was going to be one of Tennessee's best perimeter defenders. He is a great rebounder for a guard. I mean, really physical, really athletic. And Rick, loves, I guess Rick's phrase is, he creates extra possessions with the offensive rebounding, with the steals. And, I'm a little bit surprised with the offensive polish, but the fact that he's, playing 15, 16 minutes a game, I'm not surprised about that based off how high the staff was on him back in the preseason.
Rob, last thing I got for you. Any word from Rick Barnes, any update or anything on Josiah Jordan-James? I know he didn't go today and he's missed some time already this season, but obviously a guy that they'd like to get healthy and get consistent minutes out of again.
Yeah, he didn't have anything new to say post-game, and just Josiah has called himself day to day, and I'm not a doctor, but he's missed 4 games in the last couple weeks with something that was giving him problems in the preseason. It's kind of hard not to imagine that this may be something that he deals with all year long.
Yeah, figured so. But nonetheless, Tennessee does get a 56-53 win over Maryland. Number 7 beats number 13 on a day where not very good defense in the second half. Didn't shoot the ball well, but you found a way to win, and quality win potentially when you look back on it later in the season. Rob, appreciate it, man. Thanks so much.
All right, guys.
All right, that's Rob Lewis, FalkWest.com. As we continue on here with the Rocky Top Rewind, Brent Hubbs got a couple minutes left, and he had some questions about recruiting and where Tennessee stands with some of these different guys. Tennessee did have 3 official visitors this weekend, 2 of which were commits, and Shandavion Bradley and Jack Luttrell, but also had Elijah Davison, junior college defensive lineman. Tennessee looking at him, Aaron Carter, some other, not many, but a couple of prep athletes to conclude this 2023 recruiting cycle.
Yeah, I think, Aaron Carter is the name that everybody's keeping an eye on. No real word coming out of that Alabama visit at this point. So we'll see what Aaron Carter has to say moving forward. Everybody's trying to reach him. He's been low key since that. So we'll see what happens there. That's Tennessee or Alabama. I don't see anybody else getting involved there. I don't see him delaying or see him taking another visit. He had talked about potentially could take another visit. Right now I would be really surprised if he took another visit before signing somewhere on signing day. And then he wants to wait and announce at the All-Star game. Now, there's a couple of schools on that list that are his 2 finalists that would love for him to come to bowl practice. So if you come to bowl practice, you're not going to wait to announce where you're going to school. So we'll see. But I think that's a Tennessee-Alabama battle. I know he has said he's going to let Colorado in the house, for a visit. I don't get the sense he's going that far away from home, going to Colorado. I think the proximity to home will be important for him. So I don't think Colorado is going to be ultimately any kind of real factor. We'll see if he does indeed let him in the house this week and let him get a visit. Obviously, Tennessee's still got a visit to make. We know Nick Saban's already been in the home there. As for Elijah Davis, we'll see. I mean, that's one of those things where, Tennessee's been recruiting him, and you have him here for a weekend, and you gather more information and you learn more things, and then you make a decision based off that. So we'll see what happens with Arian Carter. I don't think he's the slam dunk take that I thought he was, but before coming into this visit. So we'll see what all happens with that one. And I think the other thing at this point is just, what does that portal look like, Eric? What's available to them? What do they like? Who do they like out there in the portal? The thing about the portal that's interesting is you want to try to do medical evaluations, right? I mean, you want to make sure you're not getting a guy who needs a labrum surgery or needs something. All of a sudden, you're not going to have him for 6 or 7 months. And how effective could they be? All those things you're trying to look to do, but everybody's trying to go fast. Everybody's trying to make a quick decision. You feel like you got to go really fast, because if you don't, then you're going to get passed. You're going to get passed up by some other schools out there. So we'll see where Tennessee's at. They've been active. They've talked to a lot of people. They've evaluated a ton of things. Do they get anybody in for a visit? We'll keep close tabs on that throughout the week this week, because I think if you're going to get somebody into town for a visit, I think that's going to happen in the next 7 to 10 days. But I think a lot of these guys are going to go places without ever seeing them, Eric, particularly if they're one-year guys, because they don't care. It's a 12-month deal, or in some cases, it's less than 12 months. So I just don't think they're in a ton of hurry at this. I mean, I don't think these guys are wanting to go through the recruiting process, some of them, like they did. I mean, I think Castles is a great example of that. Basically he felt like the opportunity at Tennessee was too big to pass up. He didn't want to take a chance on losing out on it, Eric. So he jumped in as basically as quick as the offer got there. He committed to the offer. So I think you're seeing quite a bit of that in the transfer portal as well.
Yeah, Castles wants to get to the NFL, looking at Tennessee coaching staff, looking at how they use the tight end position, and thinking that was his best chance as essentially a rental player. He's got 1 year of eligibility left. Come here and see what happens. Plenty of stuff on the transfer portal. It is fast moving. You can catch all that at On3 and, of course, at VolQuest.com. Tennessee right now, 24 commits for the class of 2023. National Signing Day is 10 days away on the 21st of December. Tennessee sitting 11th in the country, 5th in the SEC. And last thing, Brent, Orange Bowl practices will begin later this week. There will be some commits here to go ahead and practice. There'll be tons of early enrollees that'll be here, and you had all that in the war room last week. But Tennessee will hit the practice field and begin official preparations for Clemson and the Orange Bowl.
Yeah, they will. And so, that's going to be fun to see. 14 of 16 midterm enrollees are scheduled to be into Tennessee for bowl practice. And then we'll see exactly what happens with official visits as you got there. Ra Davis, Ra Thomas, the receiver who's been at Mississippi State, scheduled to be in at the end of this week. We'll see if that visit ends up taking place. They're obviously going to bring in the newest commitment, Larry Johnson III, the offensive lineman from out in Kansas at Hutchinson Community College. He's scheduled to be in for an official visit this weekend, but that may be it. There may be, if another receiver wants to come in before Davis or before Thomas, then maybe you don't bring in Ra Thomas. I mean, this is a fast-moving deal in this last 10 days here. So we'll see. The biggest thing for Tennessee, I think, is you get those 14 out of 16 midtermers here. You breathe a little easier because you don't have to chase all around the country and kind of babysit that to the finish line because you got them on your campus. And you give them a jump start on learning things and understanding kind of where everything is on campus, how to go about your business each and every day. So there's a two-way benefit for Tennessee in that situation, and that'll take place once final exams are over and guys are through with their high school stuff.
Absolutely. You can catch it all here at VolQuest.com. That's VolQuest.com. You get a stocking stuffer, $10 for 1 year. It's the perfect Christmas gift, $10 for a 1 year of subscription at VolQuest.com. And if you're watching us on YouTube, please like this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And be sure to join us back here next Sunday night, 8 o'clock, for another edition of the Rocky Top Rewind. Got loads of stuff coming up this week as we get you closer to signing day and the Christmas holiday. For Brent Hubbs, I am Eric Kane. Thank you guys so much for joining us right here on another edition of the Rocky Top Rewind.